Tonight, dreamers have their day in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. The fight for the future of DACA recipients across America. Plus, from a closed-door hearing room in the basement of the Capitol to the airwaves for all to see, what to expect as the public impeachment inquiry gets underway. And an update on the health of former President Jimmy Carter. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
DACA takes center stage at the Supreme Court. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. The future of 700,000 young immigrants hangs in the balance. Today, the Supreme Court heard from both sides as President Trump moves to end the Obama-era immigration program known as DACA.
CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy brings us tonight's top story.
Well, John and Jenna, today these young immigrants looked here to the Supreme Court for help in an effort to stay in the country. Dreamers took their fight to the steps of the Supreme Court.
Our home is here.
Her story is one the High Court might consider when deciding on President Trump's bid to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival program, or DACA. It protects young immigrants known as Dreamers brought to the U.S. illegally as children. Under DACA, they can stay and work in the U.S. with a renewable 2-year permit.
DACA has been an opportunity for me to pay it forward by becoming a teacher and helping my students understand the power of their own stories.
In 2017, the White House announced it would end those protections, although lower federal courts kept the program going.
We know, sabemos, that DACA is legal and constitutional because of the multiple courts that have already rejected the Trump administration's attempt to rip DACA away from hundreds of thousands of people.
President Trump tweeted, "Many of the people in DACA, no longer very young, are far from angels. Some are very tough, hardened criminals." President Obama said he has no legal right to sign order, but would anyway. If Supreme Court remedies with overturn, a deal will be made with Dems for them to stay.
When we think about our dreamers, we think about folks who are as American as any of us, who fundamentally have contributed significantly to not only our economy, but to our American way of life. And the Congressional Hispanic Caucus for years has fought to get Congress to recognize the fact that these folks are Americans.
Say it loud, say it clear.
But it's the Supreme Court that will decide if Trump's effort to wind down DACA complies with federal law. Now, the ruling is expected by next June when the court releases this term's decision, and it could be a close call with a deciding vote possibly coming from Chief Justice John Roberts. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the Supreme Court.
And Wadi Gatan of the Libra Initiative joins us now for more. Wadi, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
A big day for the Supreme Court, for Dreamers. What is at stake here for these Dreamers?
Yeah, really, what's at stake is the Dreamers and their future, right? We understand that Dreamers are contributors to our economy. They're contributors to our society as a whole. They're a big part of our schools. They're a big part of our churches. I mean, they're embedded in what is American society. And when we talk about their future, we're also talking about the future of people who depend on them, right? So a lot of employers depend on the talent and skills that Dreamers have. Dreamers have gone through our school system. There's an investment in them. There's knowledge and talent that they have and that is contributing. So the moment that they are in jeopardy for deportation, it's not just jeopardy for their futures, but for their families, and again, our community as a whole.
Obviously, cameras are not allowed in the courtroom, but was there anything you heard coming out of oral arguments today that really struck you?
Yeah, well, a lot of the reports are showing that there's an inclination from the court to rule in favor of the administration. Now, those reports obviously can change if the Supreme Court comes out and gives a different ruling. But at the end of the day, no matter what the Supreme Court decides, we believe that the eyes should really turn to Congress. Congress and the White House have the power to legislate. They do not need to wait for a decision. They can work now on a bill that is permanent for Dreamers and provides them a legal path to citizenship.
Gotti, tell us about the role that the Libra Initiative is playing with Dreamers.
Yeah, so we're a grassroots organization, so we really believe in taking the voice of the community to Congress, taking the voice of the community to Washington. So we partner with Dreamers across the country. We want to make sure that their stories of how they're contributing to the community and how they're playing an essential role in American society is heard here in Congress. When people hear their stories, they're more inclined to support and to be helpful for what is this cause.
Is there a viable bipartisan solution here?
Yes, we think so. So really, when it comes to it, we have to understand that there are Democrats control the House and Senate Republicans have control, but then there's also a Republican in the presidency. So we believe a bipartisan path forward would be one that pairs a permanent solution for Dreamers and at the same time provides enhancement for border security. There is wide support across our nation for both of these issues. If we pair them together, not only is it a win for Democrats and Republicans, but it's a win for our country and for Dreamers and for the security of our southern border.
So you hit on this a little bit about the role of both the White House and Congress, but do you think that that there is enough consensus right now for both the White House and Congress to own up to the responsibility to come up with a permanent solution for Dreamers?
It's no secret that right now the topic of immigration is one that tends to be dominated by divisiveness. If you see the headlines or if you go on social media, it's a contentious topic. But at the end of the day, when you look at polls and when you look at data, there is wide support in favor of Dreamers. We understand that they came here as children. They know no other home. They pledge allegiance to our flag, and their contributions are of great benefit to our nation and to their families. So we think if Congress can take this first step, we understand that there's a lot when it comes to immigration reform. There's a lot of parts that need to be fixed because they are broken. But if they can take a first step and focus on border security and Dreamers, we can get the ball rolling. We can get a solution that will hopefully lead to updating our legal immigration system and addressing the rest of the undocumented population.
Just a few seconds left here, but we're not going to get a ruling until June. How do you see this playing out?
Well, the reality is, come June, we're in 2020. We're in the middle of the 2020 elections. Parties tend to be divisive. We think there's an opportunity between now and the end of the year for Congress to really come together. This is an opportunity for them to put together bipartisanship and to unite around something that we believe is common sense.
Right. Wadi Gatan with the Libre Initiative. Thank you so much. Great to have you.
Real pleasure.
Well, public impeachment hearings are set to go live tomorrow, and they're being described as both blockbuster and ho-hum, depending on your point of view. The televised testimonies of 2 witnesses are scheduled while Republicans attempt to have their own witnesses come forward. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us from the halls of Congress just hours before tomorrow morning's spectacle. Abby, do you have the popcorn ready?
Oh, yes, you know it, John. And that, these past few weeks, it's been really hard to follow the he said, she said coming out of these closed-door hearings. But as you said, tomorrow the doors are opening up. The public gets to hear from these witnesses themselves. And while Democrats are continuing to release transcripts from the closed-door hearings leading up to these public testimonies, President Trump's allies are maintaining that there's been no evidence of an impeachable offense.
We're going to go.
The new transcripts are from October 23rd, the day Republicans dramatically stormed a closed-door hearing when the Pentagon official in charge of Ukraine testified the president directed aid to Ukraine be frozen.
There was no investigation, and the aid flowed as it was supposed to.
Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley maintaining that even if the president tried to pursue a quid pro quo, it didn't happen.
Impeachment is serious. It's the most serious thing you can do to a president.
And it will be on full public display, broadcast live on networks, cable channels, and the internet. First up, acting U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bill Taylor, who texted Gordon Sondland, the U.S. Ambassador to the EU, that it would be crazy to withhold security assistance for help with the political campaign. Then, diplomat George Kent, who said behind closed doors that the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, ran a campaign of slander and lies to oust former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who's set to testify publicly Friday.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
The public proceedings come after acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney admitted and then denied a quid pro quo.
The president asked for an investigation of possible corruption by someone who happens to be a political rival.
Republican Senator John Kennedy said Sunday President Trump's desire to withhold aid could be lawful.
Foreign aid by law can only go out to countries that are not corrupt.
Senator Rand Paul echoed that assessment, adding that Republicans should be allowed to bring witnesses of their own to the circus.
If you can't call Hunter Biden and you can't call the whistleblower, that's sort of a sham. That's not even really a trial.
Now, a big fish Democrats have been trying to go after in the impeachment inquiry is acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, who said today that he will not comply with the House subpoena. He will instead listen to the White House direction not to testify, and he's dropping his lawsuit, asking a federal judge to rule on the matter.
Now, Abby, we know it's not only the first time the public gets to hear testimony, it's also the first time many lawmakers get to hear it as well.
Yeah, that's right, John. If you were not one of the 100 or so lawmakers allowed in those closed-door hearings and you haven't had time to read through the hundreds of pages of the depositions, transcripts of the depositions released, this will be the first time that many people on the Hill hear directly from the witnesses, hear from some of the people closest to the matter, what they witnessed, what they have to say. Now, both Democrats and Republicans hope that it will prove, these testimonies will prove what they've been arguing for weeks. For Democrats, that there was an impeachable offense committed, and for Republicans that there was no quid pro quo. Now, I spoke to Democrat Representative Ro Khanna, who told me that while he's very concerned with some of the things he's heard, he is encouraging Americans to listen to the witnesses and not the lawmakers. Take a look.
I think they can expect fairness, transparency, seriousness. There shouldn't be a partisan time. We should let the witnesses do more of the talking, not the members of Congress, and let then the public make an assessment after they hear all of the evidence.
The first two witnesses will testify tomorrow, and there will be one more on Friday, and then we're expected to hear from a few others in the following week.
Abby, let's talk about the timeline here. Do you have any sense on how long this public process might take?
Yes, well, anything can happen, but what we've been hearing is that this process will wrap in the House by Christmas, that they will hear from all the witnesses, have all the public testimonies, take a vote, and it will wrap by the end of the year. And then at the start of 2020, we're hearing that that is when the Senate will begin their own impeachment trial.
And Abby, tomorrow, President Erdogan of Turkey will also be at the White House while all of this is happening. A lot of lawmakers, though, are not real happy about that.
Yes, that's right, Jenna. Now, there's a bipartisan group of lawmakers that have said that this is inappropriate to host President Erdogan after Turkey invaded northern Syria last month, following President Trump's decision to pull U.S. troops out of Syria. Now, I spoke with Ro Khanna about this, and he told me that, you know, while he doesn't necessarily think it's inappropriate for President Trump to meet with a world leader, he believes that President Erdogan should make President Trump some promises before this meeting. Take a look.
Well, if he's going to meet Erdogan, he needs to make it very clear what the responsibilities are. Erdogan needs to stop any violation into the Kurdish space. He needs to make it clear that he's not going to attack Kurdish civilians, and he needs to make that commitment to the United States. And if the president can get that commitment, I'm never going to hold him at fault for meeting a foreign leader. But I think that far more needs to be done to get that commitment from Erdogan.
Now, this meeting will take place just down the road from a pretty historic day on the Hill. Back to you, John and Jenna.
And Abby will all be watching. And we'll be back with more Faith Nation right after this.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Or Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
And we're back now with our political panel. Gabby Orr is a White House reporter for Politico, and Jennifer Wishon, senior Washington correspondent for CBN News. Both of you, good to have you. Jennifer, to you first. Tomorrow, the impeachment inquiry goes public. This is history that we are witnessing.
Absolutely. This is huge. This is a huge moment in American history. You know, this has only happened 3 times. Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton. Richard Nixon resigned before he was impeached. The other 2 were impeached but not removed from office. So for a quarter of the population who are 25 and under, this is brand new. Bill Clinton's impeachment hearings were 20 years ago. And so this is huge. You know, and make no mistake, when the curtain rises on this theater that's going to play out tomorrow, the American people are the most important actors here. Right now, we know both sides are dug in. And so Chairman Schiff and Democrats are hoping that this testimony is going to be so compelling that it's going to solidify public opinion around impeachment. The problem is a lot has happened since 20 years ago in terms of, you know, what we're addicted to. We like short videos, short sound bites. Also, testimony is not going to be nearly as salacious as it was 20 years ago in the Clinton impeachment hearings. So we're going to hear a lot about cables. We're going to hear a lot about hearsay. And the big question is, are Americans going to sit down tomorrow after the big opening moment with their popcorn and watch this hour after hour?
Gabby, there's been a lot of reporting about the lack of coordinated response from the White House. How is the White House preparing for tomorrow's impeachment inquiry?
Well, things have certainly changed since Mulvaney went out and gave that briefing to reporters at the White House a couple of weeks ago. That was really a turning point for this administration. They got their act together. They brought on Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, and Tony Saig, the former Treasury spokesman, and both of them will be handling messaging but also legal strategy for this White House heading into the public part of impeachment. So that's one thing that they've done to change things. But the president will be working the phones tomorrow. He'll be in touch with a number of his most loyal allies on Capitol Hill. I've been told by White House officials that he'll be carefully monitoring all of the public hearings. He does, of course, have a meeting with President Erdogan tomorrow. And so I do think that the White House will try and use that sort of official event to respond to whatever's happening on Capitol Hill and say, look, the president is still doing policy. He's still conducting official business, even while the theatrics of impeachment are playing out.
Is it a coincidence that while all of this is happening tomorrow on Capitol Hill, at the White House, President Trump is hosting Turkey's President Erdogan?
No, absolutely not. Look, the situation in Turkey is atrocious. 300,000 plus people are being displaced. People don't have water. Reports this morning that men are having their hands tied behind their back and being beheaded. People are being burned. This is atrocious. It's a humanitarian crisis. And make no mistake, this is because President Trump decided to step aside and President Erdogan decided to move in and invade. So this isn't necessarily a good story for the president. But as Gabby said, this is an opportunity for the White House to say, you know, we're working on this. The president is addressing it. And it's a distraction. And it's not something that's happening right down Pennsylvania Avenue. It's happening far away.
Gabby, do you think this is something the president will address with Erdogan? I imagine some potentially tense moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be doing a joint press conference tomorrow, so expect that to come up when they address reporters. I also know that the White House will be holding a conference call with reporters this evening where they will probably do some preliminary spin in terms of what the president is going to say to President Erdogan and how he's going to address that. But it's certainly a topic that has to come up in their conversations tomorrow. And if it doesn't, I understand that a number of Democrats on Capitol Hill are going to be carefully watching this and determining whether or not the president actually handled this meeting well. Sure. And brought up issues that are not just significant for this administration, but really for lawmakers in D.C. as well to be looking at.
All right, Gabby and Jennifer, thank you both very much.
Thanks.
Up next, an update on the health of former President Jimmy Carter.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Former President Jimmy Carter is back in the hospital tonight. He's recovering from brain surgery he had this morning. The procedure is supposed to help reduce pressure caused by bleeding in his head after a pair of recent falls. The 95-year-old has spoken out about nearing the end of his life. He says a bout with cancer a few years ago shaped his perspective that he has today.
Well, I assumed naturally that I was going to die very quickly. And I always prayed about it. I didn't ask God to let me live. And I found that I was absolutely and completely at ease with death.
Speaking at his Sunday school at his Georgia church last week, President Carter said the promise of eternity with God is a reason for the ease.
So I'm going to live again. After I die, I don't know what form I'll take or anything, but I have confidence that there is a God, that He's all-powerful, that He keeps His promises, and He's promised us life after death.
And President Carter will remain in the hospital for observation following today's surgery.
Well, to the economy, where fear of possible recession is growing across the country, and tonight worry it could happen soon. A new poll from CNBC finds 65% of Americans believe a recession is likely within the next year. Younger people are especially concerned. 71% of 18 to 24-year-olds are worried a major downshift in the economy is heading our way. And a year out from the 2020 presidential election, a recession could hurt President Trump at the polls. Still, most Republicans don't think that'll happen, 71% saying they don't expect one to occur. Democrats tend to disagree, though, 84% anticipating a coming recession. 72% of independents feel the same. Well, meanwhile, President Trump was in New York this afternoon touting the economy. Speaking at the Economic Club of New York, the president said his administration has delivered on its promises.
We have ended the war on
American workers, we have stopped the assault on American industry, and we have launched an economic boom, the likes of which we have never seen before.
At the close of the market today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the day pretty much even. The S&P ended up nearly 5 points. Overall, since early October, Wall Street has been experiencing a market rally with multiple record-setting days over the last few weeks.
Adoption in America. Still ahead, how the administration is honoring a long-standing November tradition.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
For more than 2 decades, every November, the country marks National Adoption Month. The goal is to raise awareness about the needs of permanent, loving homes for kids in the American foster care system.
Today, Vice President Mike Pence honored that tradition, highlighting the work of faith-based organizations that help children find their forever families.
4 out of 5 families have pointed to faith and church support as a factor in successful fostering, and countless families rely on their faith communities as they adopt and incorporate children into their lives. And I'll make you one more promise. Child welfare providers will never be forced to choose between their faith and serving those in need. Not on our watch.
And this year's theme of National Adoption Month is Youth Voices, Why Family Matters. And that is a great cause, Jenna.
Yeah, it is. Adoption is just an important cause, like you said.
That's right.
Well, that is going to do it for Faith Nation tonight.
Thanks for watching.